to know. Okay, so who gets reported? Vendors. And very important this year, your vendors, when you do it by paper, have to be reported on the 1099 NEC forms. So in all the years prior, you've been buying your 1099 miscellaneous for both owners and for vendors. This year for 2020 tax year, make sure you buy 1099 NEC for your vendors. The people who get reported for vendors are people who are set up as a vendor profile in Promas with a tax ID and have vendor payments. So if you ever wrote like a single check or anything where it has a one-time payee, those people are not going to get reported. If you realize you made a payment to a vendor outside of Promas and you want to include it in Promas, you can go under AP and choose adjust vendor payments. If you have any questions on that, let us know, but it can be adjusted. Owners will also get reported. They are going to be on the 1099 miscellaneous form. And tenants get adjusted, or sorry, tenants get reported on the 1099 interest form. Owners is based on the taxable income account codes you have set up in Promas. Typically, you will only see your rent and your late fees. If you want to see this report in Promas for your database, you can go to reports and choose miscellaneous reports. This is called chart of accounts. And one other thing is that a lot of people ask about the profile status. So the status does not matter when filing your 1099. So you can make a vendor inactive, you can make an owner inactive, a tenant, whoever, and Promas will still pick up everyone who has reportable income. And here are the filing deadlines. So kind of a lot going on in this chart, but if you look here, we have the different forms. So we've got the 1099 NEC, which is what you use for your vendors. You need to send out those to the vendors, to the recipients by February 1st. If you're filing by mail or electronic filing, that also needs to be sent out by February 1st, basically the end of January. Then there's the 1099 miscellaneous and the 1099 interest. That's for your owners and your tenants. Those need to be sent to the recipients by February 1st. However, you do not have to file those to the IRS until later. So you can wait, you can send them to your recipients, wait to find out if anyone has an issue with it, whether they have a name change, a social security number change, they have an amount that's wrong and you need to fix it. It gives you that little bit of period to make corrections before you actually submit anything to the IRS. So if you're filing by paper, those are due March 1st or basically the end of February. If you're electronic filing, those are due at the end of March. So you do have that little bit of time. I know some people will file them all together, but if you want to make sure you have some time for corrections, you can space them out. Okay, so now we are going to switch over to our software. So here I have the Promas logon screen open. This is one way that you can find out what version of Promas you're on. In order to have the 1099 update for the year 2020, you will need to be on release 2021.1 build 8. So if you look at this bottom of the screen, you'll see that is the version. Okay, so I went ahead and signed in, and we are going to be looking at the tax reporting. So you would go into mailings and click on tax reporting. And you'll notice that this dialog message appears. It's an informational message, nothing's broken, but it does say the tax reporting figures are unchanged from the last time they were loaded or edited. And you'll see this if you've opened it pretty much at all in the last 6 or so months. And the reason is because Promise will calculate all of the information at that point in time and then essentially freeze it. So it doesn't recalculate it, it doesn't update it when you add new 2020 transactions. It freezes it in time. It's supposed to be a security measure so that as you're working on your tax reporting, it doesn't get interrupted by people making changes outside of the screen. So it's very important when you go in today or later on in this month, if you finish entering in your 2020 transactions, that you reload the returns. And I'll show you how to do that, but that's what this message means. So it is a very important message. So I'm just going to give everyone an overview. Some people are new to version 12. Some people have not done this before in Promise. For some people, it's been a while. And we did change it a few years ago. So starting up here on the far left is the tax year. So your screen should say 2020. If it does not, if it says 2019 or any year before that, give us a call and we can help walk you through updating your software because that should say 2020. There is a settings button here where you can change the date, but you do not need to do that. There's not really a good reason to do it unless you're trying to do prior years. Now, what we're seeing on our screen here are vendors only, and there's different variations of the way you can get your screen to appear. So I'm just going to walk through what those different variations are. So under reporting group, the options include vendors only, which will only display your vendors. Owners only will only display owners. Tenants only will only display tenants. Owners and tenants will display both owners and tenants, but not vendors. And then all payers will display everyone. The display returns, all returns, which is the default, will show everyone. Below reporting limit, the reported returns shows returns that meet the minimum. Printed returns are returns that have been printed already. So if you want to be able to go back and see maybe who wasn't printed or sorry, see who was already printed, you could see that. And unreported returns are returns that have not been reported. Then you can also have limits. So under limit 2, and this is actually a great way to make sure everything is verified, double checked, all that stuff. So you can have, the default here is no filter, which means it shows everyone. There's below reporting limit. So anyone who doesn't meet the $600 threshold for owners and vendors, or the, I want to say $6 threshold for the tenants. Reporting error. So actually, let me go ahead and click that. So below reporting limit. So if anyone who is below the limits, you'll see them here. Anyone with a reporting error, which actually in this practice is going to be everyone, and I'll show you how to fix these errors in a moment. There is mark do not print, which means anyone who has been marked to not print, just make sure that you don't, if your intention is to print everyone, you can go through and see if anyone was accidentally marked and verify if they were supposed to be or not. Marked override will show you everyone who has been edited. And we will be doing an override, so we can come back to this and see what that looks like. And then mark skip. So again, if you mark someone a skip, this gives you the chance to double check and see if you had skipped them on purpose or skipped them by accident, and just kind of review that information. We have the all returns, vendors only, and owners and tenants, which are pretty much the same as this drop-down menu. They do exactly the same thing. There's just different ways to going about it. It is important to mention that whatever you're seeing on your screen when you go to do anything is what's going to come out. So if you go to print, whatever is on your screen is what will print. If you go to do an electronic file, whatever is on your screen is what's going to be in that file. So it's very important to remember that part. Now, when you first came into the screen and I said you should reload the returns, so the very first button after verifying that date really is to click reload returns. And I would recommend anyone doing it today who hasn't been working in it or going forward should click the start over button. Start over just goes through absolutely everything, recalculates all the names, recalculates all the amounts, it updates all the names, addresses, social security numbers, puts everything that's current in your database on this screen. If you have already been working in Promas and you maybe did a update outside of this window and you want to update or reload the amounts, which will recalculate the dollar amount, reload taxpayer information, which will check for name changes, address changes, tax ID changes. You can click that. You can also exclude people with overrides or exclude returns with skipped. So it won't even consider those people. Now for these 4 checkboxes, it only applies to whatever is on your screen. So when you first come into the tax reporting screen, you will see vendors only. So if your intention is to update the owners, make sure that you click on all payers or all returns and then do this. If you click on start over, it does it for everyone, but these 4 checkboxes are for whatever is on your screen. And after you click whatever boxes you need to choose, you can click on update records and it will update what is on your screen. If you click this button by mistake, you can click the cancel button and nothing will change. These next few buttons, print none and print all, are basically toggles. So it can print none of them and you can see all these little X's come, or you can print all and it removes those X's. You can skip all and it'll put in the X's here for skipping them, or you can skip none. There is a order tax forms button. This will bring you to our Promas Forms website. They're a partner company for us that sells Promas checks, envelopes, and 1099 tax forms. So if you are not sure where to get your tax forms from, you can come into here and click the order tax forms button and you can buy the tax forms online. We also have a print tax forms button, and this gives us the dialog box to print the 1099 copies, to print the 1096 copies, print substitute 1099s, and then again, an option to order forms, which is the same button pretty much. You can generate tax files, and this gives you the option to generate the tax reporting file, which is what 99% of you will be doing. If you happen to want to generate a 10 matching file, this is a service offered by the IRS to try to prevent any kind of error. It matches what tax ID you're saying you have versus what they might have, and it just kind of maybe helps avoid fines or any kind of errors. In this middle section here, we have all of the returns, or all of the people who you're going to be reporting on. And you can click on their name and it will give you more information about them. And you can go through and see them. You can also click on report and it will give you an important notice that you can read, and then click OK. And again, whatever is on your screen. So if I had next to no one on my screen, next to no one will be on my report. And then I can preview this report, and it's going to go through and tell me an overview of what's happening. So this is actually a really great report for figuring out how many forms to buy. So here you can actually see the name of the form that you would buy. So this is the owner's rent collected, and you would order 1099 miscellaneous, and me, I would order 13. Your number will vary. Tenants are in this middle section, and then vendors are at the bottom under 1099 NEC. And again, there's a record count for each little section that will help you figure out how many forms to buy. You can use this report for whatever you need to. It's a really great report. So now I'm going to show you two of our most common error messages. So here you can see there's an error displayed. Filer has no tax ID. And you'll see that absolutely everyone has the same message because it deals with the filer, or you, having an issue. So it will apply to everyone. So in order to fix that, and actually another error message you'll see. So you'll see filer has no tax ID. You might also see filer address truncated. So both of these are resolved the same way. You would go into setup and then click on company. And this is your company profile. And my error message said there was no tax ID because I had taken it out briefly to figure out what that error message was, but I did put it back in. So let me show you something real quick. I'm going to start over. So I clicked on reload returns and now I'm clicking start over. And then clicking yes. Okay, filer address truncated. So the other message was when I'd briefly taken the ID out. So this will make a little more sense. So let's go to setup, go back to company. And here's my company profile. And address truncated is when the address is too long. The IRS allows for 40 characters in the address field, and Promas allows for way more than 40. So you may come across times where you need to come in and fix it. So the most common problem is people think that they need to put their company name on this first line, and they don't. That actually should just be completely removed from that line, and just the address needs to be in there. So now my address is much shorter, and I can click save. You can make other changes if it says your address is truncated and your company name is not in there. You can use abbreviations, you can use shortened ways to put it in, however you got your business license in the first place with your shortened name is probably what you'll want to use. And then click save. And you can see nothing happened here. It still says filer address truncated. So like I did 2 seconds ago, I'll reload the returns. So I'm just going to click on reload returns and then start over. And then yes. And my limit 2 is reporting error. So before there were tons and tons and tons and tons of people on here, and now there's 2. So I have 2 errors left. If I wanted to see everyone else, I could change it to no filter, and you'll see that most of them don't have that error anymore because I fixed the address that was too long. So if I want to go back and see who my errors are, it is these 2 owners. So this one says taxpayer address truncated. And if I click on this other line, it says the same thing. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to fix this same error message. So if I click on Clayton, let's see. So here it's showing the address, and you can see it's kind of like cut off. What I'm going to do is click on Edit Taxpayer. Edit Taxpayer actually opens up the the owner profile. If you're looking at a tenant, it would open the tenant. And it makes a permanent change. So if there's a way to shorten an owner's address where the mailman can still deliver mail with the shortened abbreviations, then I highly recommend clicking Edit Taxpayer so that you don't have to keep doing this year after year after year. If it's an address where when you shorten it, it's no longer deliverable, then you would click on Edit 1099. So in this case, I'm going to click Edit Taxpayer. And here's the owner's profile. And here's his very, very long address. So I'm going to shorten Southwest to the abbreviation SW. I'll shorten street to just ST, and I will get rid of a bunch of these letters. So this address was able to be shortened a lot by using abbreviations in such a way that mail can still be delivered. So I'm just changing the owner's profile so next year I don't have to worry about him. And when I click save, I get this confirmation asking, it says update taxpayer and filer information. This includes addresses and taxpayer IDs. This does not update the amounts. So I'll click yes. And when I do click yes, you'll see he goes away, because I have a limit to reporting error and he no longer has an error. Now I have this other owner who has an address in another country. So I know that there's abbreviations that I don't want to use. I just want it to be a one-time correction. I don't want it to be permanent. So if that's your case, click on Edit 1099. And this is editing the 1099 record. So in order to actually click into any of these fields and make a correction, the very first thing that needs to be done is to mark this Override 1099 information checkbox. So once I do that, there's a few things that I can come in here and change, such as the amount. But I can also fix the address. So you may have to look at the owner's profile before doing this to find out what the full thing is, since part of it does get cut off. So I will change this part. So in care of can be abbreviated as CO. And then I've got some extra spaces in here, and every space counts. Okay, so now it fits, and I can unmark the error in 1099 checkbox, so the error will go away because I overrode the information. And then I can click save. And now it says no records loaded, and this is because my limit 2 is still on reporting error, and I've now corrected this person. Now, what would be interesting is you can click on marked override, and you can see anyone who you've made corrections to. So if you maybe start working on it and the next week you can't remember if you actually made any overrides, you can see, and you can see what they look like. So I just kind of fixed the address here. So those are our most common issues. If any of that didn't make sense, or if you still have more questions about that, we're happy to help at the help desk, but those are the most common issues you'll face. You'll also see a detailed overview of that in the handout on the side of your screen if you want to see maybe you do a little better reading, or if you want to just kind of process it a little slower. I did go through that somewhat quickly. So going on, once you have your owners and vendors and tenants and everyone corrected, no errors, everything is looking good, you can start your printing or generating tax files. So most people will be printing at least something. So you would click on print tax forms and then print form 1099 copies. So that includes your copy A that you would send to the IRS. That includes your copy B that you would send to the recipients, and your copy C that you keep in your office. When you print copy B, make sure you mark this checkbox so that it prints only 4 digits of the social security number. If you forget to mark this, which you normally do for copy A and copy C, it will print the whole social security number. So just be aware that you should be marking this when you're sending this out in the mail, since something might happen to it. The other thing is I highly recommend that you do a test printing. Absolutely every printer is going to pull the paper from the tray ever so slightly differently than what our printers do at the office when we tested it. So if you need to adjust the printing up or down, you can do that in this micro adjust down box. So if you wanted to move it an entire inch down the page, you would type in 100. If you wanted to move it down half an inch, you would type in 50. If you wanted to move it up, you can put in minus 50 or minus however. You can go to very small numbers. So if you just need it moved a smidge, you could even put in -2 or +2 or whatever you need to move it by. You have that capability. So when you're doing that testing, you would click on print none, and then you would unskip some of them. So we always recommend doing 3 or 4 so that your printer grabs 2 pieces of paper. Because typically printers will pull the first page ever so slightly differently than the next pages. So print 3 or 4 as your test. So you'd click on print tax forms, print form 1099 copies. I'm going to print it to PDF. And now it's doing the vendors. I'm just going to cancel out of that because we don't need that. So I just wanted to kind of show you real quick what it would look like. So you will need the pre-printed forms to print this on, but you can see that the ID is blocked out. The information will get printed based on the tax form. You can also print a 1096. So again, the 1099s, the 1096s, the substitutes are all going to be based on whatever you're seeing on your screen. So if you're only intending to do vendors, you would click vendors only and then proceed to generate your files. And you would fill this information out and click on print. And again, you do need the form. So when you buy your 1099 miscellaneous, 1099 NEC, in your 1096, you can print it directly from Promas. Just make sure that your printing looks good. One thing you can also try doing is printing it on blank paper, holding your form behind it and holding it up to a bright light so you can make sure it aligns without ruining your forms. And then just for fun, let's see what the substitute looks like. Now for the substitutes, you can actually save them as a PDF. You can publish them so you can email them out to your owners. You can publish them to send them out to your Hero PM portal. If you plan to only send out substitute 1089s, you do need permission from your owners and vendors to do that. So the people who tend to have that put it as a line in their contract with their owners to give them permission to only have to send out 1099 substitute forms. And this is what it would look like here. So it gives you all the information that you would typically see on the form without having it on pre-printed paper. We only saw one because I actually had do not print on all of them. So if I do that one more time, here we go. Here we can see some more people. So yeah, it's very important that you have the right settings for your display. And you can see we're only seeing vendors right now because I had vendors only selected. So it's just keep that in mind when you're working on these things. So going forward, we can talk about the generate tax files. So if you do intend to do TIN matching, it's right here, but mostly you'll just click generate tax reporting file. Very important to make sure that this is 2020 tax year. and not 2019 or a year prior. If you don't have the 2020 tax year listed here, let us know and we can help you with updating your software. And this is some fake information, but the transmitter control number and the name control will come from the IRS. So we can't provide that to you, but you can get that from the IRS and you can fill it in here. Make sure that you do not have create a test file marked. You're not sending in a text file, you're sending in the real thing. So do not mark that. If you end up with any corrections that you have to do later on, you would mark this here, mark all B records with correction code G. If this is your first time submitting it, do not mark this. And then you click compile and it will say how many records were in the file. It tells you where the file gets saved. And also if you click the OK button, the location will be open. So if I click OK, here is my tax file that I can now send to or submit to the IRS. If you plan to submit the vendors and owners and tenants separately, I highly recommend that you rename it so that it doesn't get overwritten when you do another one. So you could put vendors or you can put some sort of description so that you know what is included in this. So if I have vendors, I can come back and choose owners and tenants and do it again. And you can see it comes with the same the same file name. So it will override anything you have already there. So this might be an easy way to distinguish the two if you're going to be doing it separately. Also, for anyone in the cloud version or using our cloud version, when this file gets created, you'll want to right click on it and choose copy, and then go to your desktop or wherever you like to keep files on your computer and do right click paste. That will download the file from the cloud to your computer so that you can submit it. Anyone who's using our desktop version, you can also paste this to your desktop so that it is easier to find, because sometimes it's a little tricky to find this location. So next so that is pretty much the tax module. If you have any further questions about that, I will be doing a Q&A, but very briefly, I'm going to review owner statements. So I'm going to close out of this. So for end of year owner statements, we recommend going to mailings. So let me come back here. So mailings and then owner statements. And then under override statement type, choosing the end of year option. If you don't have an end of year option, essentially it's just an owner statement style with unit balance summary as the body style and owner balance summary as the summary style, and exclude notes marked. The 1099s ignore the profile status, but the owner statements does not ignore it. So if you do have owners that you want to report, you can choose as the owner filter all owners, or you can choose as a ledger filter all ledgers. And if you want, you can add a statement note, or essentially something that you put at the top of the statement with something you want to get across. So perhaps you would want to say, thank you for the great year. Whatever you want to put there. And then you would click on run. You would change the date to last year. If you wanted to publish these to send out by email, you can click publish. If you wanted to save them as PDFs, you could. You could print them directly from this screen. but I'm just going to click preview. And here you can see the owner statement. So let me scroll down to well, we'll just look at this owners. So you can see that overall, this is the amount that was reported for the owner, and then it breaks it out by unit. So if he had more than one, let's see, was there one that had more than one? Okay, so here on the side, this one has more than one. So you can see, nope, I lied to you. Here's one with more than one. Willowbrook 201, Willowbrook 202, Willowbrook 203, and you can see it's broken out, what's happened at this versus this versus this, but then it's all consolidated here at the top. So you can send this out to your owners with their 1099, you can email to your owners, you can email to your owners with the substitute 1099, however you want to handle that, but this is the one that we recommend sending out at the end of the year.